Socks and underwear. We've been just walking through the idea that every year at Christmas, we get gifts that we don't necessarily want, but they are gifts that we need. And that's kind of what we've realized through this series, is that Jesus is that gift that a lot of times people, they don't necessarily want, but it is a gift that they need. The first week, we talked about just the unexpected gift of Christmas, and that is that Jesus came the way that he did. He was born to a poor family, came as a child, as a baby, so he could show us that he understands what it's like to go through the struggles of life. He understands what it's like to live a humble life, and that is showing us how much he actually does love us. We talked last week about the fact that we return gifts during the Christmas season, that we do that with Jesus as well. We end up rejecting Jesus a lot of times in our life because he doesn't do the things we expect him to do. Or maybe we've rejected Jesus because of the way the church or Christians have treated us in the past. And so we end up missing out on the gift that Jesus has for us, the gift that God has for us through Jesus, because we're looking for something else. Today, we are going to be talking about receiving a gift. How do we receive a gift? That's a big part of gift giving, is receiving the gift, is the giving the gift in a way that the person who's getting it receives it the way we want them to receive it. So if it's a special gift, something we've put a lot of time and effort in, we want the person to receive it in a way to show how much they enjoy it, how much they like it. Maybe sometimes you give a gag gift, and you want the reaction to be one that they laugh and they see the humor behind it. And so we want the person to receive the gift in the manner and in the way that we're giving them the gift. When Christy and I were dating, we'd been dating for a while, and it was moving towards something a lot more serious. We were moving towards getting engaged, getting married. We came to a Christmas season, and I was struggling with buying her just a gift that would be the perfect gift, something that would just kind of wrap up everything else that I had gotten to kind of put everything in together. I'd gotten a couple of those smaller things, but I was looking for that one thing to kind of just to make it really special. And I was struggling. Everything I was looking for I couldn't find. It was a bad time. And so I remember I went to one of her friends, and I said, "Hey, what should I get Christy? I've gotten her these two smaller things, but I need just one more thing to kind of pull it all together." And they said, "Why don't you buy her a children's book?" And I remember thinking to myself, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. And I probably should have listened to myself, but I let them go ahead and continue. And they said, "No, you buy a children's book, and the goal is that you find a book that represents how you feel, the things that you'd like to say, or how you feel about her as your girlfriend, maybe as your wife." And that's not a bad idea. I can do that. I can go find a children's book. That'll be perfect. She'll think I'm sweet. That this is going to be a great idea. And so I went to the bookstore there in Joplin, Missouri. And at the time, I didn't realize how many children's books there are. Because I'm the kind of shopper that likes to get in and get out. I like to go and get what I'm looking for and then leave. I don't mind shopping. I don't mind. In fact, I go to the grocery store a lot for Christy. If you give me a list, I'm going to go and I'm going to walk through. I'm going to find the things on the list. If I can't find it, they must be out. I'm going to go on with the rest of my day. And that's the way I am with shopping. I don't mind going to the mall. I don't mind going to a store. But I'm going to go, I'm going to find what I'm looking for. If they don't have it, that's fine, I'll leave. I'm not going to spend hours shopping for something. And so I walked in that day on a kind of a time crunch, because I needed to buy the gift that day. I was at the end of my time. This is my last option. And so I walk in, and it felt like hours that I was looking at all these books. It was probably only 30 or 45 minutes, but still way too long to be in a store. I'm sitting there, and I'm looking, and I can't find a book. I've gone through every book title. I've looked through all the books, and I'm getting to the point where I'm done. The problem is I had no other option. I'd put all my eggs in this basket. That I had to find a book. And so I began looking one more time. I told myself one more time going through all the books, and then you can leave. You would give it, the old college try, and it would be okay. And it must have been the providence of God in that moment that I saw a book that I'd overlooked the previous 12 times I'd looked through all the books. And I saw it, I thought, oh, that's perfect. And I grabbed the book, and I looked at the front of it, and I said, "Oh, this is great." The title of the book was called "A Blessing from Above." And I'm like, "Oh, how great am I? I'm going to get this book. She's gonna love this idea behind it, and so it's great." And so it had bunnies on the front of it, and I'm like, "Oh, this is cute. This is great." So I ran to the front. I paid for it. I went home. I wrapped it, ready to give Christy her gift. And so I show up, and we're exchanging gifts, and I leave the book to the last one because I'm so excited this is going to be awesome. And so I give her the book, and she opens up the book, and the look on her face, I mean, it was perfect. I had nailed the gift. And she read the title. You could tell she was getting what I was going after there. And she began to thumb through the book, and as she began to read the book, her face changed a little bit. She wasn't mad, but she was almost a little confused. And so she finished the book, and she put it down, and she looked at me, she said, "Did you read the book?" And I knew in that moment I had two choices. Number one, I could lie and say yes, or number two, I could tell the truth. I figured either way I was in trouble, and so I figured telling the truth was probably the best option. And so I said, "Actually, no, I didn't," and kind of told her the story, and she said, I didn't figure you had, because the book is all about this little bunny that gets adopted into another family. So the entire book was about adoption, and it wasn't really about it wasn't the theme I was going for, this Christmas gift for this girl who was going to become my fiance, who eventually was going to become my wife. That wasn't the theme I was looking for. I was looking for a different reaction to the gift than the one that I got. I wonder if sometimes this is the way that God looks at us when we open his gift of Jesus at Christmas. That he is excited, he's looking for this great reaction, and at the end, in the moment that we open the gift, that people open the gift, they don't react the way that he was expecting them to do, to react, to the way they should react to this gift. I mean, we've taught people how to react to gifts. We've taught people the appropriate response to when you're given a gift. If you've got kids, you've done this. If you were ever a kid, I'm sure your parents at one point or another said this to you, but you're going to grandma's house, you're going to your aunt and uncle's house, and you know that your kids are probably going to get something they're not excited about. And so you say to them, "Hey, no matter what it is, even if you get socks and underwear, you're gonna smile, you're gonna say thank you, you're gonna maybe go give them a hug, and we can talk about it later. You can be mad about it later, but in the moment, you're gonna respond in an appropriate way because you've opened the gift, you've received the gift, and so you have to respond in a way that is appropriate to grandma, whoever who gave it to you." Now, we have to, in order to have a response, we have to open the gift, though. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, imagine, if you will, with me, that I've given you a gift. For whatever reason, I've chosen you to give a gift to this year, but I say to you, you know what, I don't want everyone that's jealous. I want you to open this when you get home. And I come back, I see you a few days later, I say, "Hey, what'd you think of the gift I got?" And you were to say, "Well, I haven't opened it yet." And I would say, "Oh, okay. Well, you really, I spent a lot of time on this. I put a lot of effort into this. I want you to have this gift. Oh, I'll get to it. I promise I'll open it when I get home. I'll open it when I get home." You see them a few days later, you ask them again, and they say, I haven't opened the gift yet." What do you mean you haven't? I mean, I spent a lot this is a gift from me to you. I want you to have it. I'll get to it. And if you continue to ask them if they've ever opened the gift, and they never opened the gift, at some point the gift quits becoming a gift. And we can't even react and receive it correctly if we never open the gift that God or that someone has given us. And that's what happens with the gift that God has given us. That if it doesn't mean much to us, if we never open it, and if we don't receive it when we do open it the way that God wants us to receive it, then it ceases to become a gift, and we don't ever really fully get to understand the gift that God has given us. So we read John chapter 1. This is where we've been this entire series, John chapter 1. It says this: "He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. So the question we are going to be looking at this morning or today, the question we're looking at is, how do we receive this gift that God has given us? Now, some of you, I know you're about ready to check out on me because you're saying to yourself, well, I've already received the gift. So it doesn't matter how to receive it because I've already received it. God's already come into my life and Jesus is already part of my life. How do I receive this? I want to give you a word of caution. I think sometimes we can approach Jesus at Christmas as this gift that we get every year. As this gift that if you go to your grandma's house and she always gets you the exact same thing every year, and it's a gift that you want and a gift that you like, but at some point, after years and years and years of getting the same gift, it kind of loses its luster. It's not as exciting as it once was. And I'm afraid that sometimes as Christians, we can come to Jesus at Christmas with that same attitude. And if we are not receiving every day, every Christmas, the gift of Jesus, the way that we should be receiving it because God has given it to us, then I believe we're going to miss out on some of the blessings that God has for us, the way God wants to work in our life. And so I think we have some truths that we can apply to our life. If we've been a Christian for 10 years, we've been a Christian for 50 years, maybe you're not a believer yet, these truths still apply to us today as we look to receive this gift. So the question is, how do we receive the gift of Jesus? Here's the first way we receive it. We receive it with gratitude. We didn't pay for it. Have you ever received a gift from somebody and the only response that you can think of is thank you? And even in that moment, it doesn't really feel like it's enough that you've got to do something else, but the only thing you can do is say thank you. I know for me, some of you already know this, but I just about 6 weeks ago, I had LASIK surgery done on my eyes. And so a lot of people already know that, but some of you don't know that I actually got it for free. I found out, someone told me about this guy in Ohio who for ministers would do LASIK surgery for free. All I had to do was get there. And so I called him out, I got on the list, talked to other people that I went to school with that had it done through the same doctor, and they all said, yeah, it's legit. And so I was excited. But there was part of me that even in the back of my mind, I kept thinking to myself, there's got to be some little hidden cost. Maybe it's not enough to deter me from doing it, but there's got to be something, a lab fee or got to be an office fee or something that I'm eventually going to have to pay for, that's okay. I'm okay with that. And so I went for my pre-op appointment on a Wednesday morning. Surgery was going to be Thursday morning, post-op appointment on Friday. And so I went Wednesday morning, did my pre-op appointment, and when I was done, I met with a lady named Alyssa. She was the one I'd been talking to on the phone, and we sat down, and she went over, we were going over things for the next day before surgery, and then she said, okay, now here's a list of Dr. Stahl's fees. And I thought, okay, here it comes. Here it is. And she's handing me this piece of paper. She says, you'll notice down at the part where I've highlighted, it's the part where you pay. And I thought, okay, here, what's that amount going to be? She goes, and you'll notice that it's zero. You owe nothing. Everything is taken care of. And I remember sitting in her office that day in Dayton, Ohio, and I just looked at her and I said, thank you. And in that moment, I thought, I need to do more, but I can't do anything. Thank you. The next day when I met Dr. Stahl after surgery, I sat up, I can see, and I said, Dr. Stahl, I don't even know, thank you for doing this. I can't thank you enough. The next day after I saw him again, as I stood up, as he was getting ready to leave to go see another patient, as we were getting ready to leave to get back in the car to drive back to Oklahoma, I remember shaking his hand and just saying, Dr. Stahl, thank you. See, sometimes we receive a gift, and even in that moment, thank you doesn't seem like the right response, but it's all we have. See, we don't like getting gifts from other people in which we can't reciprocate the appropriate amount back to them. That's why we don't like gift exchanges sometimes, especially if you have someone in your life who gives you something over and above what you would give them. Maybe you've set the limit at $50, and you buy a $50 gift, and every time that you come back, they always buy the $100 gift or a $200 gift, and you're like, I need to buy you another gift. I've got to make this right. It's got to be equal. My gift to you has to be equal to the gift you've given to me. I don't know if you watched The Big Bang Theory, but there's a Christmas episode a few years back in which this kind of plays out. Penny is buying a gift for Sheldon, and Sheldon doesn't like gifts at all, but he's going to get this gift, and so he's got to get an appropriate gift at the appropriate price point back to Penny. But he doesn't know what he's going to get from Penny, so he goes out and he buys multiple gifts at different price points. So that after he receives the gift, after he looks up how much it costs, he can go back and then he can pull the appropriate gift and give her the right gift that responds with the amount of money she spent on him. Well, he opens up the gift, and it's a signed napkin by Leonard Nimoy, who's someone from Star Trek, and he's so excited he didn't know what to say. He runs back and he gets all the gifts and he gives them to Penny, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You're right, it's not enough, it's not enough." And he goes and he gives her a hug, which is a big deal for Sheldon. But in that moment, we're kind of like that. We want to give the appropriate response back to someone else when they give us a gift. And I think we try to do this sometimes with God, that we try to earn back the gift that He's given us, because obviously we don't buy Him gifts. But we look at this gift that God has given us, and thank you doesn't seem enough, so we try to earn the gift. We try to do it through service. We try to earn it through our work, through the things that we do, and we can't earn this gift. See, if we did that, if we were able to earn the gift, it wouldn't be a gift. See, God doesn't expect us to earn it, but He wants to know that you appreciate the gift. Let me say that again. God doesn't expect you to earn the gift, but He wants to know that we appreciate the gift. See, the gift of Christmas, the gift of Jesus at Christmas, is a free gift, but it wasn't cheap. It wasn't a cheap gift. If you had to pay for it, there's no way you could afford it. So the appropriate response when we receive the gift of Jesus at Christmas is thank you. Thank you. Receive the gift with gratitude. Here's the second thing, way we receive it. We receive it with humility because we can't afford it. We receive it with humility because we can't afford it. William Willimon is a professor at the Duke Divinity School. I think he's also the campus pastor, if I remember right. But he said this about Christmas: "We are better givers than getters. Not because we are generous people, but because we are proud. The Christmas story is not about how blessed it is to be givers, but how essential it is to see ourselves as receivers." You see, Christmas really isn't about giving at all. We've turned it into giving. We like to give. We like to feel generous at Christmas, and that happens especially at Christmas time. We become more generous than we are throughout the year. Think about it. I mean, you're going into Walmart, or for heaven forbid that you have to go to Hobby Lobby, and you go into Hobby Lobby. There's always the different places around the city. There's outside of those stores are a stand with a bucket, someone with a red vest and a hat on, and a bell ringing for the Salvation Army, and people are walking in, dropping money, dropping dollar bills to help the Salvation Army raise money. We are generous during Christmas. I read in 2013 that the Salvation Army raised, just during the Christmas holiday season, from like the end of November through Christmas, they raised $135.9 million during that time frame. We are generous people at Christmas. If you don't believe me, I want you to do this sometime this spring. Get a Santa hat, get a red vest, get a bucket and a bell, and go stand outside Walmart and see how much money you raise. I'm going to guess it's not going to be very much. See, so there's something about Christmas that makes us generous. And for us, we think Christmas makes giving easy, but the reality is Christmas isn't about giving at all. It's all about receiving. It's about receiving the gift that God has given us. See, a lot of times people have a hard time receiving gifts, especially when they are really, truly in need of help. You ever see people like this? You ever notice this, that people who are really in need of charity need someone to help them? They have a hard time receiving, especially if it's a gift that they can't afford, a gift they can never repay. They have a hard time really, truly receiving that, because it's harder to be on the receiving side of charity. It's nice to be on the giving side, but it's hard to be on the receiving side, because the receiving side takes humility, and humility is uncomfortable. And I think this is sometimes why we struggle with Jesus. We struggle with Jesus because He's given us this gift. God has given us this gift through Jesus. A gift that we can't afford, that we couldn't pay for. A gift that we need, but there's no way to really ever pay God back for it. And so we struggle with accepting the gift. It's time for us to be okay with humility. It's time for us to humbly accept the gift that God has given us, that He wants to give us. So not only do we need to receive the gift with humility, not only do we receive the gift, but the third way we need to receive the gift with joy, because we don't deserve it. John, in John chapter 1, verses 11 through 13 we read earlier, but verse 12 jumps out to me. This is what verse 12 says. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. See, this verse is not about what you've earned. It's all about being adopted into God's kingdom. It's not about you choosing him, but about him choosing you. It's a gift that he is offering us, and all he wants for us to do is to receive it. He wants us to open our arms and to open this gift that he has given to receive it. Judah Smith wrote a book called Jesus Is, and this is what he says in this book, Jesus Is. Being a son or daughter has nothing to do with being worthy. We are sons and daughters of God by birth, not by worth. My sister is adopted. Crystal came to live with us December 15th, 1998. I had just turned 18. She was 15 at the time. And I think it was October of that next year of 1999 that my family officially adopted Crystal into our family. But just like any other time, when you bring someone new into your family, especially with a teenage girl into a family of all boys, with just my mom being the only other girl, there was some tension there. There was some struggles in our family that lasted for a number of years. Crystal was accepted. Crystal was part of our family, but there was some tension there. And a few years back, about 7 or 8 years ago now, I was married. Crystal was married. My brother Joel was married, and there was a blow up between my parents and Crystal. Some hurtful things were said, and I had to make a phone call to Crystal. And I called her, and I was just talking to her, and she was mad, and she didn't think that we wanted her to be part of our family and all these different things. And I told her a story. I said, Crystal, you don't know this. I said, but a couple days before you moved in with us on December 15th, a couple days before that, we sat in Joel's old room, which became Crystal's room, upstairs of my parents' house. And our entire family sat in this room, and Mom and Dad said to us, they said, hey, we're thinking about bringing Crystal into our family. We had known Crystal. Crystal had lived with another foster family in our school district, and so we knew Crystal. What do you think? And every one of us said, yeah, we would love for her to be part of our family. We would love for her to come and to live in our house, to be a part of our family. And I told her, I said, Crystal, I want you to know this. I said, our family chose you. We knew there'd be some tough times. We knew there'd be some things that happened, but we chose you. We wanted you to be part of our family. See, that's what God does for us. We see this theme of adoption throughout the Bible. Time and time again, God's showing us that we are adopted into his family. Paul talks about it a lot. Romans chapter 8, he says this, for all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. For you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. The actual literal translation of the word Abba there is daddy. So we have the ability when we become part of God's family to call him daddy. You don't call someone daddy if you're not part of their family. That's something kids do, especially young kids. When I love going home and after work, and especially Callie, who's almost 3, my almost 3-year-old daughter. If she's awake when I come in the door, almost all the time, I open the door and someone will say, "Oh, Dad's home," and here comes Callie running around the corner, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." She wants me to pick her up. She wants me to hold her. She wants me to love on her, and that's what God is giving us. He's given us the ability to come to him as his children, even though we weren't initially part of his family. We've been adopted into his family. And when we are adopted by God, we have this brand new identity. And because of this identity, we have access to something that we didn't have before. We would have never had otherwise. It's an inheritance, a gift that we wouldn't have before. Paul said this in the book of Galatians chapter 4. But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of woman, born under the law, to redeem those who were under the law, so that we might receive adoption as sons. And because you are sons, God has sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but a son. And if a son, then an heir through God. Now, you might have heard this story before. I've heard it in churches before, but it's a good story. It's a really good story. And what I found out this week, that it's a true story. It's truthful in its entirety. Fred Craddock was a preacher, and he was a professor of preaching at different seminaries. He tells a story about he was the professor of preaching of homiletics at the Candler School of Theology in Atlanta. And he and his wife decided that they needed a vacation. They needed to get away from people. And so they took a vacation to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, just to spend some time away from people in the mountains of East Tennessee. And so the first night they were there, after they had checked into their little cabin in which there was no one around, they went to this little mom and pop restaurant for dinner. It was a small, little quaint little place, and they're sitting there, they order their food, they're waiting for their food to come, and an older gentleman walks into the restaurant. And he begins kind of going to the other tables, talking to everybody. And Craddock says, he thought to himself, oh, great. We've come all the way from Atlanta to Tennessee to get away from people, and this guy's going to come talk to us. And sure enough, this older fella comes up, and he stops by their table, and he says, hey, you guys vacationing with us? Yes. Where are you from? Oh, we're from Atlanta. Well, what do you do in Atlanta? And Craddock thought to himself, well, this will get him to go away. I'm a professor of homiletics at a school in Atlanta. Oh, you teach preachers how to preach? Yes, sir. So I got a preacher story for you. And he said before he could say anything, the old man had grabbed a chair and pulled up a chair beside his table. And Craddock was thinking to himself, I've probably heard this story 50 times, but go ahead, tell it, and you can go on and leave me alone. So the old man began a story like this. He said, I grew up, I was born and raised in these mountains here in East Tennessee. He said, I was born out of wedlock. I didn't know my father. My mother gave me her last name. And so I was an illegitimate child. Said that was quite the stigma to live with when I was growing up in those days. And so he said I would go to school and the kids would talk about me and make fun of me. I would go into town and I could hear the different adults talking behind me, behind my back. He said it was a stigma even within the church. And my mom didn't feel welcome going to church, so she quit going to church altogether. He said, but I still went to church, and what I would do is I would show up late and I would leave early so I didn't have to talk to anybody. He said the preacher scared me, but I couldn't stop coming. I needed to be there. The preacher would talk and he would point his finger, and I always felt like he was pointing his finger right at me, but I came back every week. He said, as luck would have it, one week I timed my exit wrong. And I got caught in the crowd of people as they were leaving church. He said, I was looking just for a way to get out without talking to anybody. He said, finally, out of the corner of my eye, I spied the side door, and I made a break for it. But right as I was getting ready to make a break for it, I felt a huge hand on my shoulder. I turned around, and I'm staring face to face with the preacher. And the preacher asked that question that I'd been dreading. He asked the question, who's your daddy? He said that in that moment, the silence was deafening. He said, but then the preacher leaned down, he looked at me, he said, I know who you are. He said, you are a child of God. You are a child of God. Now go and claim your inheritance. The old man said to Fred Craddock, he said, that's the most important thing that someone ever said to me. Craddock, being moved by the story, asked the man's name. He said, sir, what's your name? He said, my name's Ben Hooper. The guy got up and he walked away. Craddock said that he struggled because he knew the name. He couldn't figure out why he knew the name Ben Hooper, but he knew the name, and finally it came to him that he remembered why he knew the name Ben Hooper. He said that he had heard that there was this boy in Tennessee who grew up to be a lawyer and eventually was elected governor of the state of Tennessee twice. And that boy's name was Ben Hooper. See, maybe you're like Ben when he was a boy. Maybe you're approaching this kingdom of God thing at arm's length. You don't want to be too involved because people maybe find out about you, and ask you tough questions. You don't want them to make you not come back. Maybe you're saying to yourself, you're not worthy of this gift that God has offered, but you're curious about it, but you know you're not worthy because of your past. You're too scared to get close to God because you're not quite sure what He's going to say. And I want to tell you what He's going to say to you. All he wants to say to you is that you are his. You are a child of the king. You are now an heir to his promise. You have an inheritance. He's saying to you to go and to claim it. John chapter 1. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But To all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. See, this is the Christmas story. This is the Christmas story that God sent Jesus to us as a gift that we have to receive with humility, a gift that we have to receive with joy, a gift that we have to receive with gratitude. And if you've never received this gift, God just wants to give it to you. He wants to give it to you, no strings attached. He just wants you to take and accept and receive this gift, receive it with joy, receive it with thanks, receive it with humility. And for those of you who've been following Jesus, please don't let this Christmas season be another time where you just open the gift that God has sent through his son Jesus, and you just look at it, you say, oh, it's great, and we don't ever receive it the way God wants us to receive it. Because once we understand the value of the gift that God has given it changes the way we receive it. There's no way for us to receive it any other way than receive it with gratitude, saying, you know what, God, there's no other word for me to say to you but right now, but thank you. God, I'm going to receive it with humility because I don't deserve it. I can't afford it, God. And just to be happy to receive it with joy, understanding, God, that there's nothing I can do to deserve the gift that you've sent. But you give it to me anyway. See, when we understand the value of the gift, it changes the way to receive it. So the question we have to answer today, will you receive the gift that God wants to give you? Pray with me. God, we're thankful for the gift. God, we're thankful that you've chosen to give us this gift. God, forgive us for the times in which we don't receive it in a manner worthy of the gift. God, help us to receive it with gratitude. Help us to receive it with humility, and help us to receive it with joy. Help us to live lives that just echo the gift. God, help us to understand the value, and even though we come every year to this time, help us to not just look at this gift and to put it aside, but God, to truly treasure that you sent Jesus into this world to die for us, and it's a gift that we can never repay you, but we're thankful for it. In the name of Jesus that I pray.